Hello. My name is Timothy Robert Smith. I am a muralist. I go around the world doing large-scale public art. My stuff's based on perspective and the perception of the viewer, how people see reality. I like to think a lot about that and how one person's viewpoint affects their perception of what's happening. And I like to kind of play around with different viewpoints and different perceptions and put them all together in one frame to make the viewer think about what's really happening. Like, what's my viewpoint based on where I'm standing, based on where I'm from, what time it is, there's so many factors that change your visual perception of reality. And I want people to just think about that, to analyze how they interpret what's going on. I've gone cross country several times. I went to Toledo, Ohio. In 2020, I did this big tunnel that they have that connects from the parking lot to this downtown center. And I went to Japan for a mural. I went to Nelson recently. That was really fun. That's the last mural that I did. I went to Las Vegas, North Carolina. I've been all over the country and a little bit outside the country too. But yeah, every time I do out-of-state mural, it's always interesting to take another environment and try to put that in my own artistic style. So I do a lot of research about whatever community that I'm going to be painting in. Visual research and narrative research, and I figure out what the most important things are, and I try to put them all together in some sort of twisted perspective design. One is where I paint direct on the wall. That is basically just a normal mural. I just show up in an area with a design, and I have a projector. So the projector is what I use to get the basic outline sketch. And then I have some photos, some reference photos that I hold in one hand, and I hold my brush in the other hand, and I just kind of mix all the colors to try to make it look as much like the design as I can. So that's the direct painting. It's just acrylic paint on a concrete wall. And then the other process that I sometimes use is Polytab, which I really like. It's something that not everyone knows, but once you've tried it, it's very satisfying to be able to do it, because you could just paint a mural in your studio of any size. I could paint it'd be hard to do a 40-story building or something, but you could do pretty much any size in a small studio, and you just plan it out, square by square and piece by piece. And then you roll it up. Polytab is a very thin canvas. It's called non-woven media. So it's a pure polyester acrylic canvas. And then you roll it up, put it in a ski bag, and transport it anywhere you want. And then when you get to the spot, you glue it to the wall. And usually I use a Nova gel. It's this company called Nova Color out of Culver City. So it's a gel medium. It's a thick acrylic gel. And I use that as the glue, and then I put the Polytab to the wall. So that is how I did the Nelson mural. I painted it at home, and then I just rolled it up, and I flew down there. It gets very mathy. You gotta really think a lot about the squares and the boxes and stuff. So Polytab, the sheets that I buy, they come in rolls, big rolls that are 5 feet, and then you can make it as long as you want. So I think for Nelson, they were all different sizes. They were 5x5s, 5x4s. I cut some 5x7s, but I just created a little map on like a Photoshop collage. So I created a map that had all the lines of like how the boxes fit together. And I printed out a few copies of that. And then as I'd put one up, I'd check it off. I think Nelson had, let me think about this, probably like 20 different squares that all connected, between 15 and 20. But I've done some that are way bigger than Nelson, that have had like close to 100 squares of Polytab, and that's where it gets like super like mathy. And if you make a mistake, it's like but I like making mistakes because you could always fix it. You could always just go back on top, and you know, like the worst mistake that I made is like I left one piece at home. I'm like, oh no, and I had to like repaint like a whole like 5 by 6 foot section like on the spot in like a couple hours, and that's kind of challenging. But yeah, Polytab's fun. I started doing some like Google Map imagery searches, like where I just kind of take the Google Map navigator and like go down the street and like look at different buildings and stuff. And then I looked up a lot of history of Nelson, saw a lot of photos, I saw a lot of YouTube videos, and I made some calls. Like that's one thing that I like to do. Like if I don't live in an area and I'm going to do a piece about the area, I like to do cold calls of like people that live there. And it's like, I'll just call like a bar or a coffee shop or a restaurant. Or sometimes like I'll call like the town center, and I'll be like, hey, do you have like, you know, a couple minutes to talk about your town? Like what's the bird that everyone knows? What's the, you know, what's like the trees that everyone knows? Like this is like the iconic tree. So in like Nelson, I talked to a lot of people, and I kept getting the bridge. Like there were like 5 or 6 people that talked about the bridge, and also like bicycling is very important, and I love bicycling too. So I always try to do imagery that I can relate to, because it makes my painting better, I think, if it's something that I relate to and enjoy doing. So there was that, and of course the Zipline, which ended up being the largest part of the piece, that big Zipline that just kind of cuts across. Oh yeah, and the trolley too. A few people talked about the trolley. So, and there were a lot of other things that I could have included, but I left out. I didn't want to, you know, oversaturate it with objects and people. So I wanted it to be like a very, just kind of a simplified interpretation of all the fun stuff that happens at Nelson and all the adventurous stuff. And it's at the Adventure Hotel. And I even called the hotel and I talked to them about what they wanted. So it's like something that's exciting, adventurous. And that's how I got the idea of having this like giant like foot like coming out of the frame, because I wanted it to feel like someone's ziplining like so fast that they're almost like going into another dimension, and they're just like breaking outside of the boundaries of physical reality. So it's like you have the frame of the painting, but then this foot, it like wraps around the building and kind of goes into the windows and stuff. So that for me was like my favorite part of the design, is like the zipliner just breaking out. And everything else kind of, I painted in more of like a muted, like subtle tones, more grays, so I could push the zipliner out forward and make her more saturated, and everything else a little more kind of grays. So it like really plays a lot with the depth of field, like a cinematic kind of vibe, where it's like a real differentiation between the foreground and the middle ground and the background. So that's all my internal stuff for this process. Ziplining. It was super fun. Yeah. It was like I had a day off. I think I was waiting for like the glue to come, and I wanted to take a day off anyway, but I ended up taking it, like, I think it was the second day that I was there. And yeah, I went ziplining. I hung out in the town for the whole day, and it was just a beautiful experience. But yeah, that zip line was so amazing. Like I've done some ziplining before in like other areas, but never something through like a giant forest of like trees, and like having the lines go for like that long stretch of time. I think the longest one was like 2 or 3 minutes where you're just in the air with like trees everywhere. So fun. I loved it. And they were so nice to me. They gave me a free hat when I went there. I was just like randomly talking to someone like, oh yeah, I'm doing a mural and there's a zip line in it. And I didn't think anyone was listening. And someone's like, you're the guy that's doing the zip line. Oh my God, here. And like I got a really nice hat and stuff. And they were so nice to me. They're just so cool. Like that was such a fun experience. Can't wait to go back and do it again. I teach a lot of emerging artists. I'm a teacher, like to art students and stuff at some different colleges. And like one thing that I always say is that, you know, art is definitely harder than other professions to get into. So you have to be like really committed and like you have to put a lot of extra hard work into it. It's not like a 9-to-5 job. Like you're going to be working a lot more hours than most other professions. And if that doesn't scare you away, then awesome. Join in the club. You're like in it. And I would say that there's always a balance between, you know, basic survival things like being able to make some money and to afford, you know, food and apartment and all that stuff, and then the time it takes to create your work. So a lot of artists that I know, especially younger artists, like they end up getting jobs that are super time consuming, and it kind of cuts into their design time or their like sketch time or their creation time. And we all have to deal with that. Like that happened to me a lot too. And sometimes that still happens, but you just gotta always take your creation time like really seriously. And basically my advice is to put in as much time into your craft whenever possible, because the more time you put into it, the quicker it's gonna develop, and stuff like that. Yeah, that's the best advice that I can give. Just really like be all in, like don't just halfway do it and you know, have kind of like a vague idea of the art that you want to create or the art that you want to make or your future. Like you got to just fully go in as much as you can. But I know everyone has to survive and they have to take, you know, jobs and different things. I get that, but just, you know, within that structure, within that system, like whatever you have to do it, but always keep your main goals in the forefront.